If there's one thing about me, it's that I love year-end wrap-ups. So today we're going to do that with reading, a little year-end reading wrap-up by looking at my stats. That includes both Goodreads and Storygraph. We will go into depth with them. We'll also figure out which genres I rate the highest throughout the whole year, and we'll discuss a little bit of like 2023 reading goals, what I kind of want, you know, all of that. I think this one will be a pretty quick video, but what I'm learning about myself is that I just keep talking on this channel and the videos keep getting long. So we'll just jump right into it with the Goodreads year-end books. My Goodreads pages and book numbers is going to be different than my Storygraph ones because I still have not figured out how to DNF a book on Goodreads without marking it as read, so we're just going to ignore this top part here. My shortest book that I read in this year was The Most Precious of Cargoes, which was 96 pages, which I read in December. It was a super baby book, and the longest book that I read was The Rose Code by Kate Quinn, which was 624 pages. That's a lot of pages. I didn't even realize it was that long as I was reading it. Average book length in 2022, 344 pages. I feel like that's like a good solid, I feel like most people's averages are just like around there, 344. The most people shelved, The Girl on the Train. It has over 4 million shelves, 4 million and a third shelvings, which is honestly why I wanted to read it, was because it's such a like name book. And the least people shelved, Feral City by Jeremiah Moss. Now I kind of wish, honestly, I might as well like mark this as run read or something, because I DNF'd this book. I did not like it, and so I'm kind of curious which books that I actually did read and liked are, honestly, we're doing it. I'm gonna remove it. I don't know if the year in books will update quick enough for me to tell you, but it's been removed. My average rating for 2022 was 3.7 stars, which obviously, as we all know, Goodreads just does full stars, so this might be different when we go to Storygraph. I really prefer Storygraph and its stats. I just felt like we had to start with the OG, you know? The highest rated on Goodreads is Redeeming Justice with a 4.74 average. That is ridiculously high, which I feel like shows you that you need to read it. Also, I'm telling you, you need to read it. So my first review of the year, this is not the first book that I read this year, but I guess this is the first like review that I left, but that was on One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. The first book that I finished this year was Starfish by Lisa something. It was a middle grade book. It was pretty quick, so it was my first book of the year. Lisa Phipps, I should have known that. We'll just do the little scroll through. You've seen all of the books that I've read this year just based on other videos on this channel, but it's kind of fun to see all their covers together in one spot. My last review that I left of the year was Undone by Karen Slaughter. Don't feel that I can write an eloquent review, so go read the other 1 stars, which there are a shockingly small number of, and you'll know how I feel. The last book that I actually read though was The Overnight Guest by Heather Gundenkoff. I had the goal to read 52 books in 2022. I was thinking like, oh yeah, like 1 book a week, that seems attainable, and I read 84. I'm going to head into Storygraph. I have seen that they do like a 2022 reading wrap-up now, which is quite fun, and then we'll go like, if we need to go deeper into other stats, we will. I did make some predictions of what like some of my stats are going to be, but now I've also already looked at this, so I'll let you know what my predictions were and if I was right or wrong about them. But congratulations on a fantastic reading year. You finished reading 82 books, so that's actually what it was. Whenever I said 84 before, I forgot about the DNF ones. I read 82 books across 28,168 pages. The first book was Starfish, as I said. The last book was The Overnight Guest, as I also already said. Okay, this is funny, and I want to know how they do it. A mood map of your reading. Lighter books push the line up and darker books pull the line down. Look at my decline through the year. Like, what was going on in September? And I also want to know how they like rank lighter and darker. I'm so curious about this, but I think the funniest part is that it's just like a you felt all the feels, reflected on ideas, and got wrapped up in intrigue, and most of the stories developed at a steady pace. So this is my books and pages read per month in 2022, which as you can see, it honestly follows like a little bit. So in January and February is when I was like really down for reading, and it was also grad school, and it was also like not too hard of classes that I was in at the time, and I was listening to a lot of books at that time. March it goes down, April and May it's like next to none. It was like 3 in March and maybe 1 in April and May each, just because again, grad school. Summer it goes up a little bit, June, July, August. September, I was in a big old slump. I only read 1 book that whole month, and then you can see it starting to take off towards the end of the year as I just like prioritized reading more, fell back in love with it, all of that. And yeah, I'm at 158% of my reading goal. As I said, it was 52. Now my predictions for genres was that it was going to be contemporary, thriller, mystery, because I've got more into thrillers and mysteries this past year than I did any years past, but I feel like no matter what I do, contemporary is always my top one. And at the end, thriller, this is like the very end of the year, it was neck and neck. Thriller pulled through to be the top read genre by, I believe, just by 1 book, but thriller, contemporary, mystery, historical, and then romance. The longest book, The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. Shortest book, we already saw this on Goodreads. The average length of books you read was 343 pages. That's about the same that Goodreads said. This says it took you 1 day to finish each book. That's because I wasn't good about marking like, oh, currently currently reading, you know, all of that. So I would always mark a book as read on the day that I finished it, and I wouldn't mark it as like, oh, currently reading on the day that I started it, which is why it says one day. But I kind of want to track that this upcoming year. The authors that I spent the most time with in 2022, Ellen Hildebrand. I had not read any of her books before this year, and now I've read 4. Karen Slaughter, I don't know if I even like her, but I've read 3 books by her. And Taylor Jenkins Reid, I read 2 books by this year. Overall, I read more by her, but 2 were this year. I'm trying to think what they were. Oh, Carrie Soto's Back and One True Loves, that's what it was. 2022's average rating was 3.53 stars, and the 5 stars, the only 5 stars that I gave this year were The Things We Cannot Say, 28 Summers, Wait, I'm Glad My Mom Died, The Riviera House, Book Lovers, and Finley Donovan is Killing It. It says some months were better than others, and it says that May was my highest month with a 5-star average. That's because I read 1 book in May, and it was 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand, which I gave 5 stars to, so like take it with a grain of salt. Probably this upcoming year, if I'm like more consistent at reading through each month, that will be a more accurate stat. But as I already mentioned, I read the most pages in December, which was 6,763 pages. The most shelved on the Storygraph is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and the least shelved is Profit and Punishment. So I'll have to check Goodreads now that I took out that one that I DNF'd and see if that's the same over on Goodreads. Highest rated over here is also Redeeming Justice, so still read it. I explored the works of 73 new authors. 16 of the books that I read were part of a series, and I did not make any rereads this past year. At least it had been tracked. I feel like the ones that I reread were like books that I read when I was a child, like Maniac Mickey by Jerry Spinelli, The Click by, what's her name? Lizzie Harrison, The Click. And so then as we can see with mood, it was mostly emotional. I'm always mostly emotional, then reflective, and then mysterious, dark, tense, and then they start to get smaller and less relevant after that. Pace, mostly medium, then fast, then slow. Page number, 300 to 499, then under 300, then 500 plus. That's to be expected, I feel like. Fiction and nonfiction was an 80-20 split. The genres we already saw, but I'll show you here as well. Format, this was kind of interesting. 50% of the books that I read were print, 48% were audio, and then 2% of them I read digitally, like ebook on my phone. So what I did to find my favorite genres based on rating this year was I literally just took each of the books that I read in each of the genres, the top ones, the top genres that I read, and saw what the average rating of them was, which actually ended up being very interesting. I feel like 2022 was a year that I was kind of coming back into a reading and trying to figure out like what my taste is, because I think my taste really has changed in that in 2020 I read almost strictly like a lot of nonfiction. It was so much more nonfiction. In 2021 I kind of was all over the place a little bit with like what I was reading, in that a lot of it was contemporary, some of it was like romance, a lot of it was young adult, and I just wasn't branching out that much, and I also didn't really know what to branch out to. Whereas in 2022 I started reading more like thrillers. I tried a little teensy bit of horror. I kind of started figuring out like what I like in romance. I started reading more like historical fictions. So I'm just really trying to figure it out as far as that goes. But breaking it down by what I'm rating the books that I'm reading, my top rated genres are tied at memoir and historical fiction. Never would I have thought that I'm a historical fiction girly, but I probably should have thought that because I very much apparently am. But on average of both of those genres that I read this year, it was 3.78. And I feel like that comes from a fact of just really enjoying knowing people's stories and getting to know people. And so it's like memoir is real life people, and then historical fiction is fake people, fictional people that I get to know. Coming up under that was literary with 3.67 average star rating, then romance with 3.64. After that comes contemporary, 3.45, then mystery, young adult, LGBTQIA plus books, and I think that was just really picking up the wrong books. Like I feel like that's more of a theme than a genre sometimes. Promise I'm an ally. Thriller was 3.2 average rating, and I think that reason for that is that I really love a good thriller and I really hate a bad thriller, and so that just like, is it gonna be 5 stars, is it gonna be 1 star? So I think I need to get better at learning what I enjoy in thrillers so I can pick up thrillers that I actually like, or is like finding good authors that I really like so I can find thrillers that I really like. And then the lowest rated genre of the top ones that I read this year, like the most books that I read in each genre this year, that kind of top, was actually crime, and that is honestly because Karen Slaughter's book brought the whole genre down. Considering there's a 0.5 star in there and there's a I think like 1.25 star in there that are both from Karen Slaughter, so I think that kind of skewed those results a little bit. But as far as looking into the new year and setting new goals, I did make my book goal be 100 books, 100 books, which I think should be attainable honestly if I just keep up the hobby. I do have goals to kind of branch out more, but also it's like branch out and settle in, branch out by trying new things, but then also like figure out what I like and start just like picking books that I really enjoy and like. So I want to do that by maybe dabbling in a tiny bit of horror, maybe, but I definitely want to get more into fantasy in the new year. I have a couple books that's like my goal to read that I kind of went into in that 23 and 23 video that I did. And then I have a couple reading challenges that I'm going to do this year. And so one of them is the Buzzwordathon by Wallen Books, which is just where she picks like a different either word, specific word or theme, and you just each month pick a book that goes with that word or theme. I follow a bookstagrammer whose handle is Read, Watch, Drink, Coffee, and she has a different four challenges for each month. That's like a TBR challenge. And so I'm doing that challenge too, just because I think that's fun and it's fun to follow prompts. And then I'm keeping track of the 2023 Pop Sugar Challenge and the Barnes & Noble Challenge. Not because I really feel like I am going to like prioritize finishing them, but I think I'm just gonna like track the books and see like if the books I'm reading are fitting prompts. It's just kind of like, you know, throwing wet spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. I feel like that's what I'm doing with those challenges. I'm also tracking where books that I read take place. Mostly like in the United States, I'm having a map of states, but then Storygraph also has a reading challenge that's like Storygraph around the world. It just has several different countries, so I think that'll be a cool one to do as well. A little quicker video in this one, but I just kind of wanted to like tie the year up with a little bow, discuss the statistics, and obviously with all of the reading that is coming ahead in the new year. I'm very excited for this booktube to exist throughout this whole new year, and so I'm glad that you're here with me. Subscribe before you go for sure, and I will see you next time.